these are the three basic fuel pumps you're going to find on your Volkswagen motors. Now this is the old 40 horse. You can see it had a fitting that went into the pump from the tank, and then a push-on line that went up to the carburetor. Then they went to just push on both connectors, and then later on, and then finally when they came out with the alternator, they changed the design of the pump a little bit. They tipped it back about 15 degrees, and the pump's a little shorter. Now one good thing you've got to know about this is that that pump uses a shorter rod. Here's the rod that was used in the other pumps. I'll put those next to each other, and you can see that this short one's about 8 millimeters shorter than the other rod. So you want to be sure that you're using the rod that goes with the pump that you're using. Now I'll show you how to put these on the motor. Now before we can put our fuel pump on, we want to dig back in our gasket set and get these two gaskets out of here. One of them goes against the block, and one of them goes on the top of this little plastic thing that goes under the fuel pump. This is a fuel pump stand. But before we put this in here, I'm going to show you a little tip that I've never even seen in any of the books. This fuel pump stand, I'll show you this one here, putting it down in here. It slips down inside here. I can even get it started. Now see how that's a tight fit. It doesn't want to drop down into the block. What can happen is that this thing can swell up with the heat of the motor and actually squeeze against the fuel pump pin. And it'll give you the same effect as a vapor lock, or actually the same effect as just turning your key off. And then by the time you stop your car, go back, look at it, go back and try it again, it's cooled down a little bit and it's moving again. And this will just drive you crazy sometime. And I've seen this happen several times. So the solution to that problem is, before you put this in here, I've already done one here, you take one of these and just sand that off around there a little bit, or put it on a grinder. It doesn't have to be real pretty or anything. Just take some of the plastic off of it, make this a little smaller, so it just drops right down in there. Now, it doesn't matter if that's just a little bit loose right there, but that'll give you just enough play to where that won't squeeze that pin and lock your fuel pump up. Okay, now to put this on, we just put this one gasket against the block, and then we slip this down in here. Don't put the pin in here and then try to put it in, because you might drop the pin right down into the block. Drop that in there. Put our other gasket on, and then we can drop our pin down inside it then. Now before we put the fuel pump on, you want to take some wheel bearing grease and pack it inside the fuel pump. This is what lubricates the fuel pump, because there's no oil line or anything that goes to it. It just works on this grease from that point on. Pack plenty of it up in there. And then we just bolt our fuel pump right on these two studs right here.